The Carolina summer of 1989 clung to the air, thick and humid, a stifling blanket that promised relief only in the swift, violent thunderstorms that often rolled across Charlotte in the late afternoons. For 11-year-old Emily Hayes, August 15th was just another Tuesday, a shimmering, unremarkable day in the long stretch of summer vacation. Her days were a tapestry woven with the mundane joys of childhood in the late 80s. Riding her huffy bicycle, its chrome handlebars glinting in the sun, down the tree-lined streets of her quiet Ballantine neighborhood, trading baseball cards with her older brother, Michael, and immersing herself in the fantastical worlds conjured by the worn paperbacks she devoured at an alarming rate. Emily was a creature of habit, a quality both endearing and, in retrospect, terrifyingly predictable. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, she walked 3 blocks down Maplewood Lane to her best friend Jessica's house. Jessica's mother, Mrs. Peterson, ran an informal summer art club, and Emily, with her innate knack for capturing the world in vibrant watercolors, was a devoted participant. She had a mop of sun-streaked brown hair, often tied back in a haphazard ponytail, and eyes the color of a summer sky, usually crinkling at the corners with an infectious laugh. She was small for her age but possessed a tenacious spirit that belied her delicate frame. Her world revolved around school, her family, her loving parents, Sarah and Robert and Michael, her sometimes annoying but always protective older brother, and the small, safe radius of their suburban existence. That morning, Emily had helped her mother, Sarah, in the garden, pruning wilting petunias and deadheading marigolds. The smell of damp earth and blooming flowers still clung faintly to her denim shorts. Robert, her father, a quiet man who managed a local hardware store, had given her a crisp dollar bill for an ice cream cone on her way back from Jessica's. Michael was off with his friends at the neighborhood pool, his adolescent concerns far removed from Emily's more whimsical ones. At precisely 1:30 p.m., Emily kissed her mother goodbye, a fleeting peck on the cheek. "I'm heading out, Mom. Be back by 5 for dinner," she chirped, grabbing her worn canvas bag containing her art supplies and a half-eaten Snickers bar. Sarah watched her go, a familiar pang of maternal affection warming her chest as Emily's small figure, clad in a bright yellow t-shirt and those familiar denim shorts, disappeared around the bend in the street. The sound of her sneakers scuffing against the hot asphalt faded, replaced by the droning cicadas and the distant hum of lawnmowers. It was a perfectly ordinary moment, one of hundreds that strung together the fabric of their lives, utterly devoid of any premonition of the gaping void it was about to become. Emily never made it to Jessica's house. At 2 p.m., Mrs. Peterson called Sarah, a faint note of concern in her voice. "Sarah, has Emily left yet? Jessica's been waiting by the window." Sarah's stomach clenched. "She left 20 minutes ago, Carol. She should be there by now." A quick call to Jessica's home, then another, then a growing knot of unease. Sarah walked the 3 blocks herself, calling Emily's name, her voice wavering, the sound swallowed by the oppressive heat. Nothing. No sign of Emily, no art bag carelessly discarded, just the silent, baking asphalt and the indifferent drone of summer. The first signals of alarm were subtle, then immediate, then deafening. By 3:30 p.m., Sarah was frantic. Robert, called home from work, his face a mask of escalating dread, joined the search. They walked the route again, slowly, meticulously, calling her name until their throats were hoarse. They knocked on neighbors' doors, their voices strained as they asked the question that would haunt them for decades. "Have you seen Emily?" The answers were uniformly negative, laced with concern and a dawning understanding of the gravity of the situation. At 4:17 p.m., Robert Hayes made the call to the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. It felt like an admission of absolute defeat, a capitulation to the terrifying truth that their daughter was truly gone. The initial response was textbook, yet inadequate for the raw, visceral terror gripping the Hayes family. 2 patrol officers arrived, their uniforms crisp, their faces impassive. They took down the details. Emily's description, what she was wearing, the last known sighting. They checked the house, the backyard, the shed. It was a formality, a ritualistic motion when they knew, deep down, that the child wasn't simply hiding. The sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a cruel mockery of the beauty outside when their world was collapsing within. The initial investigation quickly escalated. More patrol cars arrived, their flashing blue lights painting eerie patterns on the suburban homes. Uniformed officers fanned out, beginning a grid search of the immediate neighborhood, then the adjacent park, then the small, dense patch of woods bordering the subdivision. Dogs were brought in, their trained noses pressed to the ground, but they found nothing, no scent trail, no discarded item. Detective Arthur Vance, a veteran of the CMPD with a weary but sharp gaze, was assigned to the case by that evening. He was known for his methodical approach, his ability to sift through chaos for the smallest, most significant detail. He spoke with Sarah and Robert, his voice calm, reassuring, but his eyes conveyed the grim reality. "We'll find her, Mrs. Hayes, we'll turn over every stone." But even as he spoke the words, a familiar chill ran down his spine. The early hours, the golden hours in a missing person case were slipping away. The first days blurred into an agonizing nightmare. Posters bearing Emily's smiling face, with her bright eyes and sun-kissed hair, appeared on every lamppost, every storefront window in Charlotte. Local news channels ran continuous stories, anchoring the broadcast with her photograph, pleading for any information. The Hayes home became a hub of desperate activity, volunteers organizing search parties, neighbors bringing casseroles and offering hollow words of comfort, detectives moving with grim efficiency through their living room, interviewing family, friends, anyone who might have seen something. Michael, Emily's older brother, retreated into a shell of adolescent grief and guilt. He blamed himself for not being home, for not protecting her. His parents, consumed by their own despair, barely registered his silent suffering. Their focus, their very existence, narrowed to one single, agonizing question: where was Emily? The investigation was thorough but frustratingly fruitless. Neighbors were interviewed multiple times. Utility workers, mail carriers, anyone who might have been in the area was questioned. There were no signs of a struggle on Maplewood Lane, no witnesses to an abduction, no abandoned vehicles, no strange cars reported. A few vague sightings were reported: a girl in a yellow shirt by a convenience store, a child matching Emily's description getting into a car with a man, but each lead dissolved under scrutiny, proving to be either mistaken identity or an outright fabrication. The leads dried up one by one, leaving behind a cold, desolate emptiness. The Charlotte-Mecklenburg police poured resources into the case. They set up a dedicated hotline, interviewed every registered sex offender in the county, followed up on anonymous tips that ranged from genuinely concerned to wildly outlandish. Detective Vance pursued every avenue, his days and nights consumed by the case. He walked Emily's route countless times, trying to see what she might have seen, to feel what she might have felt. He spoke with her teachers, her friends, trying to build a complete picture of the girl, hoping some tiny detail might spark a connection. But Emily, in her innocent predictability, had offered no hints, no premonitions, no warnings. Her life was simple, joyous, and then in an instant, gone. Weeks turned into months. The initial media frenzy waned, replaced by new headlines, new tragedies. The yellowed posters faded in the sun, then were torn down by wind and rain, remnants of a public outcry that had moved on. For the Hayes family, time ceased to have meaning. Every day was a stark reminder of Emily's absence. Birthdays were marked by a silent, aching presence at the table. Christmas brought a fresh wave of agony as they tried to pretend for Michael's sake, but the joy was a brittle, fragile thing. Sarah, once vibrant and optimistic, became withdrawn, her eyes perpetually haunted. She spent hours staring out the window, picturing Emily's last steps. Robert, ever the stoic, internalized his grief, becoming quieter, his shoulders bowed under the crushing weight of their loss. Their marriage, once strong, became a landscape of unspoken pain and resentment, each silently blaming the other, or perhaps themselves, for the unspeakable. Michael, now a teenager navigating a life irrevocably altered by his sister's disappearance, found solace in isolation, his academic performance plummeting, his friendships fraying. The family, once a tight-knit unit, was splintering under the pressure, each member adrift in their own sea of sorrow. Detective Vance never truly let go of Emily's case. It became his personal ghost, a file that sat heavier than any other on his desk. He'd review it periodically, hoping a fresh set of eyes or a new piece of forensic technology might offer a breakthrough. The advent of DNA testing in the late 90s offered a glimmer of hope, but without any physical evidence from the scene, it remained largely theoretical. The Emily Hayes file was moved to the cold case unit, a grim testament to unsolved mysteries. Then the calendar turned. 11 years melted away, marked by the changing of seasons, the rise of the internet, the anxieties of a new millennium. The year was 2000, George W. Bush was running for president, boy bands ruled the airwaves, and the Hayes family continued to live in Charlotte, their lives a testament to enduring grief, their home a silent mausoleum of memory. Emily would have been 22 years old, perhaps finishing college, starting a career, falling in love. These imagined futures were a constant torment. The call came on a crisp autumn morning, October 27, 2000. It wasn't Detective Vance who made it, but a new detective, one who had recently taken over the cold case unit, Detective Miller. His voice, though professional, carried an undeniable tremor. He asked Sarah and Robert to come to the precinct immediately. A familiar knot of dread formed in Sarah's stomach, but beneath it, a tiny, almost imperceptible spark of hope, or perhaps simply the desperate need for an end, any end, to the agonizing uncertainty. At the station, Detective Miller laid out the details with a clinical detachment that couldn't mask the gravity of the information. In a maximum security prison in West Virginia, a man named Thomas "Tommy" Rourke, a drifter who had been serving a life sentence since 1993 for the abduction and sexual assault of a teenage girl in Parkersburg, had suffered a massive heart attack. During his recovery, facing his own mortality, Rourke had confessed to a prison chaplain and subsequently to a state detective about other crimes in other states. One of them, he claimed, was the abduction and murder of a young girl in Charlotte, North Carolina, back in August of 1989. The name, the date, the location, it all matched. Rourke, in his chilling confession, provided details that only the perpetrator could have known. He described seeing Emily walking down Maplewood Lane. He'd been working odd jobs in Charlotte that summer, fixing fences for a local contractor, and had been driving a dilapidated blue Ford pickup truck, a vehicle neighbors had vaguely recalled seeing in the area but had dismissed as a contractor's vehicle. He recounted pulling over, feigning car trouble, and asking Emily for help, luring her close enough to grab her. He'd taken her to a remote, heavily wooded area near the U.S. National Whitewater Center, a place that was largely undeveloped back in 1989, far from the prying eyes of suburbia. He described the yellow t-shirt, the denim shorts, the canvas art bag. He even remembered the half-eaten Snickers bar. The confession was harrowing, every word a fresh stab to the Hayes hearts. Rourke had led West Virginia authorities to a precise location, describing landmarks that still existed despite the growth of Charlotte over the decade. A small clearing beneath a cluster of old oak trees near a trickling creek. An area that had been searched repeatedly in 1989, but the sheer density of the woods and the passage of time had made it impossible to locate anything then. A Charlotte-Mecklenburg forensic team, guided by Rourke's chilling directions, dispatched to the site. After an intense, day-long search, they found them. Human remains, small, fragile bones, partially buried beneath layers of leaf litter and earth, tangled with the roots of the ancient oaks. A tattered piece of yellow fabric, weathered but recognizable. A small, tarnished silver locket, engraved with the initial E, a gift from her grandmother for her 10th birthday. Dental records, meticulously preserved by the family, confirmed it. The remains were Emily's. The news hit the Hayes family like a physical blow. There was no joy, no true relief, only a profound, crushing confirmation of their darkest fears. The uncertainty was gone, replaced by a brutal, immutable truth. For 11 years, they had lived with a phantom limb, a gaping wound that never truly healed because it never truly stopped bleeding. Now the bleeding would stop, but the scar would be a brand, searing and permanent. Rourke, already dying, offered no remorse, no explanation beyond a cold, detached recounting of events. He died in prison a week later, taking any deeper understanding of his monstrous acts with him to the grave. There would be no trial, no justice in the traditional sense, only the horrifying echo of his words. The Charlotte community rallied once more around the Hayes family, this time for a funeral service, a somber procession to lay Emily to rest. The little girl who had vanished into the humid summer air of 1989 was finally home, not in the way her parents had prayed for, but home nonetheless. Sarah and Robert, their faces etched with a grief that had calcified into something ancient and heavy, sat through the service, holding hands, their bond reforged in the crucible of this final, devastating truth. Michael, now a man of 25, his own life profoundly shaped by the shadow of his sister's disappearance, spoke at the eulogy, his voice breaking as he remembered Emily's infectious laugh, her passion for art, the simple joy she brought to their lives. The case of Emily Hayes became a haunting footnote in Charlotte's history, a somber reminder of the fragile innocence of childhood and the lurking darkness that can, sometimes, swallow it whole. The yellow t-shirt, the denim shorts, the bright summer day all became symbols of a tragedy that ripped a family apart and left an indelible mark on a community. Life in Charlotte moved on, the city growing, expanding, its skyline changing, but for the Hayes family, time had stopped on that stifling August afternoon in 1989, forever cleaved into before and after. And even with the grim truth revealed 11 years later, the question of why, the profound, agonizing human question, remained unanswered, echoing in the silent spaces of their broken hearts. Character count check. 21,950.